Welcome back to Psalms today. We're in Psalm 127, which is really the middle psalm in this collection of Songs of Ascent. Okay, so there's 15 of them. This is number 8, and it's kind of a turning point or a linchpin for the whole collection if you're looking at it as a whole. We're just going to look at this psalm in its own right. And basically what we have is two verses that give to us the point of the psalm, the principle that's being communicated, and then that's going to be illustrated for the remaining 3 verses, which we'll see. So let's look for the point. What's the big point coming through here? Unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the watchman stays awake in vain. It is in vain that you rise up early and go late to rest, eating the bread of anxious toil, for he gives to his beloved sleep. So we've got the kind of subjects of, or the focus of the action here, the building the house, watching over the city, rising up early, going late to rest, anxious toil. Could be speaking on a very small scale level, on a personal level of the household, right? If building the house and the watching over the city, the getting up, going to bed late, the long hours, the anxious toil. You as an individual could be doing that, but unless the Lord is doing it, unless God is in it, it's in vain. Okay, and that's being repeated. It could be, of course, thinking bigger. This is a Psalm of Solomon. It could be thinking of the house of the Lord. Unless the Lord builds his house, his temple, unless the Lord watches over the city, then all of the work, all the busyness, the kind of action around Jerusalem, all of that is in vain. So we could take it on a personal level, could take it on a sort of Jerusalem level, but don't miss, of course, the unlesses and the in vains here. There's a whole set of them coming through. Unless the Lord builds, we build in vain. Unless the Lord watches, we watch in vain. Unless, well, there's no unless, but it's in vain to do all of our stuff if God is not in it. So the principle is really coming through here. Apart from you, Lord, we can do nothing. Apart from him, we can do nothing. One more detail before we look at the illustration that's given. This is a Psalm of Solomon. And it's interesting when you get down to the last line here, last line of verse 2, for he gives to his beloved, sleep. Key word there, sleep, and Solomon. Any connection? Well, Solomon did have that dream, that the Lord came to him, appeared to him in the night and asked him what he wanted, and he asked for wisdom. Maybe there's a connection here. Maybe there's a point, but actually the illustration that comes is an illustration that sort of flows naturally from sleep. You think about all the day's work of building and watching over the city. That's a nighttime job, but you know what I mean. All the work and the hassle and the anxious toil, all of that is kind of contained within your work day. Then when you go to bed and you sleep, nothing comes of that. Well, apart from the main illustration that's going to follow here, and he takes the illustration of children, kind of the ultimate illustration of God giving, not in response to our earning or our working, right? So behold, children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the children of one's youth. Blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them. He shall not be put to shame when he speaks with his enemies in the gate. Just a totally positive statement about the blessing of children. This is very different from the way children are perceived, of course, in culture and society around, but keep it in its context. This is the ultimate illustration of how God is the one who works and God is the one who gives. It's not about what we can achieve or how much we can work at things and try things and strive for things. Actually, God's the one that gives blessing. In this case, children. But actually the principle applies, doesn't it? The principle applies in all areas. A healthy marriage. If God's not involved, everything we try is going to be in vain. your career, if God's not at the center of it, everything you try is in vain. Your church, your ministry, everything you're involved in, we need to recognize the principle of Psalm 127. Apart from you, Lord, I can do nothing. Thankfully, God is a God who loves to bless us and who loves to give to us. So Psalm 127, read it through, allow especially the principle of verses 1 and 2 to resonate in your heart and in your life. And then whether the Lord has blessed you with children or not, the application of that principle is there to be seen in the final 3 verses as well. Of course, you can always take that principle and apply it in other ways too.